Shana Tova, Shabbat Shalom. Familiar words, new melody. On page 6. Try it with us.
Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Return to who you are. Return to what you are. Return to where you are, born and reborn again. Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Return to who you are. Return to what you are. Return to where you are, born and reborn again. Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul.
Shana Tova Tikatevu. We have arrived at the entranceway into another new year. May it be for you, for us all, one of goodness, health, life, love, and peace. Our tradition calls us to ask, Ma nishtana halayla hazeh mikol halelot? How is this holiday night different from all others? I know, wrong holiday. But let's be honest, if anyone had tried to tell you on last Rosh Hashanah Eve what this Rosh Hashanah Eve would be like and why, you'd have surely assumed that they had taken leave of their senses. But the last half of the Jewish year 5780 was all too real. And we embark upon the newness of 5781 with the knowledge that much of what lies ahead won't be all that new for us now. Our hearts will be filled with the same questions, fears, uncertainties that have consumed these past months. If ever the frightening fragility that we acknowledge in the liturgy of these high holy days, both as individuals and as a human family, has rung alarmingly true for us, this will be that year. Who shall live and who shall die has taken on new, urgent meaning. And as we gather without gathering here tonight, in a way none of us could ever have imagined a year ago, We know that we need these holy days and each other more than ever. It is for this reason that I want to open our observance of these high holy days by thanking you, the members of our temple and the visitors to our congregation who are creating the prayer community that none of us can see with our eyes, but all of us can feel with our souls. At a time when we've been forced into physical isolation, we are birthing an experience of spiritual togetherness. We know how many are right here with us. You know that you are a part of something high and holy on these days. And your commitment to creating that, sustaining that in your life, is what enables us to sustain it in ours. That is Leo Beck Temple. You. Without you, this entire enterprise, which carries us all through life, could not be. And so for keeping this body healthy and affording us the chance to feel the power of community when aloneness would otherwise overtake us, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. Of course, some things will be harder about these high holy days than usual, but some other things will be easier. A few of those easier things you've already experienced. No traffic to combat, no parking lot to navigate, no seats to be told you cannot save. And here's another one. The words of our prayer book will be magically showing up before your eyes during these services. And that's in addition to our offer to check out a hard copy of the actual prayer book. Pick it up from us at the temple, pray from it at home, as many of you have taken us up on our invitation to do. We hope you find it easy and helpful to have the words available on screen. But if you'd like also to have an honest-to-goodness prayer book in your hands, it's not too late to borrow one for Yom Kippur. Please just let us know by email, and we will arrange a time for you to come and pick it up. Because as you've likely discovered during these past 6 years, as we've been transitioning into the full use of our new High Holy Days prayer books, they are absolutely loaded with wisdom and inspiration, well beyond just the content that we will be including in these services. It's all available to you if you want to stop by between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. These holy days are going to be unique in so many ways. You already know about the wealth of offerings aimed at nourishing your mind and your soul, many of which are new and specially designed for our needs and our method of gathering this year. Please make sure to consult the schedule of services and other offerings carefully, because this year is different in some really lovely ways. And we want you to have the opportunity to partake exactly as you most want and need. As for our services here together in our sanctuary, I can only say that a tremendous amount of creativity and effort on the part of many, many people has gone into providing you with the worship experience that we are all about to live together. I will look forward to thanking them as our holidays conclude. But for now, our deepest wish, our prayer, is that you will harvest from these days the grounding in tradition, the honest self-search, the living compass that you count upon the High Holy Days to make possible in your life. We'll be putting our all into creating the conditions for that to happen, and we invite you to join us in putting your all into these days by truly setting them aside as sacred, just as you would if we were physically together. Engage with us fully, deeply, and without distraction. Silence your phone, turn off the email. Treat this time that we will share together as you would if you were seated right here in the sanctuary. You owe that to yourself, and it will enable these holidays to deliver for you, to change you. A part of Being distraction-free, of course, is containing your curiosity about just how we're doing what you're seeing. After all, it's not lost on us that a synagogue in this town is packed with people who know a thing or two about broadcasting and webcasting live events for large numbers of people. And so the curiosity is natural, and here is how I want to help you address it. We have invested our time, imaginations, and money in creating what we hope will enable you to have a holistic, contiguous worship experience, to truly be here with us together. Our focus has been on doing whatever will allow you to feel as uninterrupted spiritually by the technology as possible. Our goal is to ensure that how these services look and feel permits you to immerse fully. So anything you can do to quiet that little voice saying, wait a minute, how are they doing that? That would be a great gift to your soul. Here's what you need to know. The safety and health of this community, including our safety and health, is priority number one, which is why we are bringing you these services this way. We are in constant contact with the LA County Department of Public Health, and we continue to follow all health orders rigorously for the safety of those in and beyond this community. And so we're about to bring you our best to awaken, challenge, and inspire your spirit within the boundaries of what protects life, Judaism's highest obligation. We want you to take that journey with us and not distract yourself with the mechanics. We've got that. And I'll make you a promise. If the holidays end and you're wondering about something that you saw, come to our Zoom Break the Fast as Yom Kippur ends, and I will be ready to answer any question you dial up. For now, though, put that all aside, all of it, and be with us. So I want to ask you just to close your eyes for a moment. And that includes those of you who are not really close your eyes kind of people. Please, close them. See, we're about to enter the new year as one. And more than anything else, I want to help you to put yourself where you most wanted to be, here with us, with each other, inside this beautiful space that holds so many of our shared memories. With your eyes closed, see yourself here, surrounded by 1,000 others, some of whom are cherished friends, all of whom are fellow journeyers. We're here. We made it. And it was harder than ever to make it. So take a deep breath. And another. Ready your heart and your soul. And when in a few moments you open your eyes, see yourself here with us, with each other, ready as one congregation, the congregation we love. And greet this new year, now born. We praise you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe, who has given us life, sustained us in life, that we might together arrive at this season. Please join us in making Shehachianu, page 11.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam לזמן הזה.
A new year has arrived. Let us declare it in joy and song, and with the sounding of the shofar. We turn to page 15, and if you're able, please rise.
תיקעו בחודש שופר בכסל ליום חגנו כי חוק לישראל הוא משפט
Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu, yehi ratzon shenizke levirchotecha bishnat 5,781. Elohei olam, barech otanu ve'et kol beit Yisrael bechidush yameinu, besimcha u'v'shalom. Our God and God of our ancestors, may we know your blessings in the year 5781. Eternal One, bless us and the whole house of Israel with renewed life, happiness and peace, comfort and courage, resilience and strength. May the words of our heart be acceptable to you in the new year that stretches before us. We are forever grateful for the gift of life. Tekiyah.
Sound the call for a new year. May it bring for us blessing and peace. A year of strength and vision. A year of healing and love.
We continue standing for the Baruch Hu on page 20. At the bottom of page 23. The quickening of the moon calls us to return, and we gather, seam dwellers on the edge of the earth. As the sun lowers itself into the sea, introspection rises. A sliver cracks the heart of the firmament, the vast blackness and invitation to write ourselves anew. Baruch atah Adonai, hama'ariv aravim. We read together on the next page. Love beyond all space and time. Your love enfolds your people, Yisrael. We receive it in your teaching, your gift of Torah, sacred obligations, discipline, and law. So let us speak these teachings when we lie down and when we rise up, and find joy forever in your Torah and mitzvot. They are the very essence of our life, ours to ponder and study all our days. May we never lose or be unworthy of your love. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך. ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם, בשבתך, בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך, ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
We read responsively on page 33. To break the bonds of anger, to be generous of heart.
To break the bonds of shame, to live with self-respect.
To break the bonds of envy, to serve one another in joy.
To break the bonds of boredom, to be attentive to all God's gifts.
To break the bonds of fear, to live with courage and strength.
To untie the knots of betrayal, to love with fullness of being.
To break the bonds of loneliness, to receive a hand of hope,
to break the bonds of self-centeredness, to extend a hand of help.
Released from the darkness, our people found their freedom at the sea.
We pray for liberation at the dawning of this year.
מי כמוך בנים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורא תהילות אוסף פלא. מלכותך רהובנך, בוקע הים לפני משה ומרים, זה לי ענו ואמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו. ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל.
Page 37. Darkness settles slowly across the horizon. The new year rises before us, its fragile moon awaiting our embrace. Heaven and earth entwine in their annual dance of recreation. A fissure appears in the firmament tonight, an entranceway into new beginnings. Out beyond the swales, the sea expands and contracts, keeping time to the thrumming of the universe. Under this Rosh Hashanah sky, the path before us is uncertain. All we can do is hold each other tight as we make our way home.
Tonight and every Shabbat, we ask for a shelter of peace for us and for all people everywhere. And that leads us into Vishamru, reminding us to stop and breathe. Breathe a new soul into us, into this Shabbat and these holy days.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu L'shalom, L'shalom. Ve'hamidenu Malkeinu L'chaim. Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha, Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha. Amen. Shelter us beneath thy wings, O Adonai. Guard us from all harmful things, O Adonai. Keep us safe throughout the night, till we wake with morning's light. Teach us, God, wrong from right. Amen. Amen. Amen.
Vishamru can be found on page 38.
Shameru b'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat la'asot et HaShabbat l'dorotam berit olam berit olam. Shameru b'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat la'asot et HaShabbat l'dorotam berit olam berit olam. Hashamayim ve'et haaretz u'bayom hashvi'i Shabbat vayinafat beini uvein b'nei Yisrael oti leolam beini uvein b'nei Yisrael oti leolam. Shameru b'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat la'asot et HaShabbat l'dorotam berit olam berit olam.
Page 41. You can't rush a prayer to God. If it comes from the heart, it will rush out on its own. Speed through receding galaxies or silences in the soul, and God will hear. Honesty with all, but speaking to God is different. Mine the soul for your coal and gems and regular earth, no pretense, and God will hear. Don't force the prayer or string words together. Pause. perhaps better not to pray. Silence will be a message of awe, and God will hear. Now step off into the very deep, beyond the way of prayer. We glimpse unknown magnitudes of God no more, or we would be stunned into silence. Except that love makes itself small, we could not pray at all. Please rise for the Amidah.
Adonai, Sefatai Tiftach, Ufi Agite Hilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu ve'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor ve'hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Vekonei Hakol, Vezocher Chasdei Havot ve'imahot, Umevi Geula Livnei v'neihem, Lema'an Shemo be'ahava. Zochreinu l'chaim, Melech hafetz b'chaim, v'chokvenu l'sefer ha'chaim, l'ma'ancha Elohim ha'im, v'chokvenu l'sefer ha'chaim, l'ma'ancha Elohim ha'im. Melech ozer, u'moshiach u'magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham v'ezrat Sarah. Atah Gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechayei hakol atah, Rav lehoshia morid atah, Mechakel chaim bechesed, Mechayei hakol berachamim rabim, Somech novim, Rafech olim, Umatir asurim, Umekayem emunato, V'shenei afar, Michamocha b'gevurot, Uridon melach, Mechemit u'mechayeh, u'matzmiach Yeshua, Michamocha el harachamim, Zocher Yetzorah l'chaim berachamim, V'ne'eman atah l'chayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayei hakol.
We continue in silence through page 68. In addition to the traditional prayers, there are some beautiful readings and meditations. Explore the prayer book, work your way sequentially, or find something to linger on. You can remain standing or be seated when you are ready.
Page 66.
Shalom Rav HaYisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav HaYisrael Amcha Ki ata hu melech adon lechol hashalom.
Ki ata hu melech adon lechol hashalom.
V'tov levarech et amcha Yisrael bechol eitu chosha bishlomecha. Besefer Chayim beracha v'shalom. Beracha v'shalom u'parnasa tova. Beracha v'shalom. Nizachem v'nikatev lefanecha. Anachnu v'chol amcha v'et Yisrael. L'chaim tovim u'shalom. Baruch atah Adonai oseh hashalom.
On page 75. We haven't forgotten Avinu Malkeinu. Though we've overthrown kings and we disobey fathers and we have no great liking for absolute power. Akiva stood before you in a time of drought and his words went up like a flame on the altar. Avinu Malkeinu, you alone are our ruler. Avinu Malkeinu, have compassion for us. He was humble and forgiving, and so his prayer was answered. Tonight, we speak again in a time of drought. Dry ground beneath us, no water, only rock. Not only a hunger for bread or a thirst for water, but hearts that are longing to hear God's voice, for the sea of faith is all but gone. The tide's gone out on the empty beach. The world mocks our hopes and life tests our courage. Why do the wicked live on and prosper? Why are you silent when they prey upon the innocent? And if your dominion is kindness and justice, why is creation in so much pain? Avinu Malkeinu, sustain our souls, send rain to our roots, help us find a way to pray. Make us humble and forgiving of ourselves and one another. Avinu Malkeinu, renew these words. Help us speak them with conviction and believe their truth. 100 generations have stood before the ark, and they lifted up their voices like flame on the altar, and they put their trust in kindness and justice, and they gave their strength to make the promise real. Avinu Malkeinu, we haven't forgotten. Avinu Malkeinu, bring us back to you. If you're able, please rise. On page 77. Avinu Malkeinu, Shema Kolenu.
Avinu Malkeinu, almighty and merciful, hear our voice.
Avinu Malkeinu, Chatanu Lefanecha.
Avinu Malkeinu, we have strayed and sinned before you.
Avinu Malkeinu, Chamol Aleinu v'al Olaleinu v'tapenu.
Avinu Malkeinu, have compassion on us and our families.
Avinu Malkeinu, Kalei Dever v'cherev v'ra'av me'aleinu.
Avinu Malkeinu, halt the onslaught of sickness, violence, and hunger.
Avinu Malkeinu, Kalei kol tsar umastin me'aleinu.
Avinu Malkeinu, halt the reign of those who cause pain and terror.
Avinu Malkeinu, Kodvenu b'sefer chayim tovim.
Avinu Malkeinu, enter our names in the book of lives well lived.
Avinu Malkeinu, Chadesh Aleinu Shana Tova.
Avinu Malkeinu, renew for us a year of goodness.
Avinu Malkeinu, Chonenu va'anenu, ki ein banu ma'asim, aseh imanu tzedakah v'chesed v'hoshienu.
Avinu Malkeinu, almighty and merciful, answer us with grace, for our deeds are wanting. Save us through acts of justice and love.
Avinu Malkeinu, Shema Kolenu. Avinu Malkeinu, Chatanu Lefanecha. Avinu Malkeinu, Chamol Aleinu, Ve'ol Aleinu, V'tapenu.
Avinu Malkeinu, Kal Zever, V'cherev v'ra'av, Me'aleinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Kal echol tzar,
I was born in 1965, old enough to be alive for the activism of the late 1960s, too young to have participated or even remembered it. I came of age in the 1970s, after the race riots, after the anti-war movement, after Watergate. And like many kids my age, I saw the era of my coming of age as hopelessly boring and inconsequential. I had just missed the marching in the streets, the living and dying for it, the events for the history books. Instead, I got disco. I wanted to live the events for the history books, or so I thought. I was already in my mid-30s when I got my first real chance at living the events for the history books as a New York rabbi on 9/11. Quickly, I learned what many of you, those older than me, already knew. Living the events for the history books isn't all it's cracked up to be. 9/11 changed so much about our lives and so many of our habits and ways of being. And incredibly, 3 times as many Americans will die of COVID-19 just between now and Yom Kippur than died on 9/11. And that's how it has already been for 6 months, and how it will be for God knows how much longer. Living the events for the history books definitely isn't all it's cracked up to be. The oldest among us, those with memories of World War II, discovered this when they were very young. But even they have no analog for this global pandemic, the kind of worldwide plague that shows up only every century or more, uniting the world in common cause. Of course, our world doesn't feel very united as we greet this new Jewish year. We are united only by how isolated this virus has made us. Even the way we are gathered right now, experiencing this holy day both together and entirely separated, is the story of the year 5781, our story. What does it mean to be a part of a congregation that cannot congregate? This is the question that these Yamim Noraim, these days of awe, places before us. After all, there is nothing more profoundly counterhuman than this separation, which totally arrested our sensibilities back in March, but is becoming numbingly normal now. The Torah tells us so from its very beginning. One by one, the wonders of the world are created, and God declares each one to be tov, good, even very good, when looking upon the whole of it. Lo tov, not good, comes into being only when God looks upon human separateness, seeing Adam, the first human, all alone. Lo tov heyot Adam levado, says God. It is not good for the human to be alone. According to the very earliest rabbis of the Midrash, God is moved to this conclusion when Adam protests his aloneness, noting that all the other living creatures were formed in pairs. They had companions and could increase companionship for all. Adam looked to the skies and saw birds everywhere. In the seas, fish abounded. Why, he demanded, should he uniquely be left alone? The first human's first act was to express his abhorrence at being alone. And this was when God corrected the error in creation, moving beyond a single human to humanity, a biblical voicing of our biology as a social species. Or as French Jewish philosopher Emmanuel Levinas elegantly put it, the approach to the face of another is the most basic mode of responsibility. The ethical rapport with the face of another is asymmetrical in that it subordinates my existence to the other. This is what it means to be human, to welcome the subordination of my own existence by looking into the eye of someone else and seeing that I am obligated. Something of the power of that obligation gets lost when looking into each other's eyes exclusively over Zoom. Our quarantine is keeping us alive, yes, and our rigorous commitment to it is beyond debate. We must distance, we must mask, but something in us, something of us, is also at risk of dying while we keep our bodies safe from harm. You see, even before this pandemic, another epidemic had already stricken our society, the epidemic of loneliness. And as we discussed just this past Saturday night at our Slichot program, clinicians understand loneliness not as a simple matter of actually being alone. It's the experience of feeling alone, even if you're not. Feeling unneeded, unseen, unmissed. It is corrosive and dangerous. And it was already perilously on the rise even before we were relegated to separateness by the coronavirus. Back in the late 1970s, polls suggested that roughly 20% of us were chronically lonely. By 2010, AARP polled us and discovered the number had doubled to over 40%. What changed? The biggest factor, scientists say, is the rise of internet technology, the very mechanisms that are granting us what little access to each other's faces we presently have. If you think that social media makes a person less lonely, the research strongly disagrees with you. The internet has slowly conditioned us to accept a large quantity of surface interactions as a substitute for the few high-quality interactions that create depth and meaning in our lives, which is why the number of people with no close friends has tripled since 1985. And yes, this means that loneliness is not uniquely for older people. In fact, some studies suggest that young people are 3 times as likely to feel alone as older people, even though they are constantly connected to others online, perhaps because they are connected so relentlessly to others online. Now, don't get me wrong. I am grateful beyond words for the technological wonders that are enabling us to gather like this tonight, that have enabled us to conduct Shiva services over Zoom, convening people on multiple continents in one virtual place to remember and to grieve and to comfort. I shudder even to think of what this pandemic experience would be like for all of us, if not for the gift of the internet. But for a long time now, we've been talking ourselves into the notion that a text is the same as a talk, when in fact it just isn't. And the consequences of the loneliness we are cultivating in ourselves as a society, choosing and adapting to as a species, they are devastating. Increased heart disease, increased risk of stroke, increased substance abuse, decreased memory, and acceleration of Alzheimer's disease. This, so many of you have told me you have witnessed in your own loved ones. Increased domestic violence, increased gun purchases, increased depression, increased suicide. Lo tov heyot adam levado. It is decidedly not good for us to be alone, as we are fated to be more than ever during this unprecedented time. And the preliminary research describing the effects of all this suggests that loneliness increased 20 to 30% and emotional distress tripled during just the first month of quarantine. Now it's half a year later with no clear end in sight. We are living events that will be retold in the history books and trying desperately not to die from them. The question we must answer: what does it mean to be a part of a congregation that cannot congregate? Is just this year's language for the eternal question we always ask on Rosh Hashanah. Mi yichyeh u'mi yamut. Who shall live and who shall die? Who by plague? Who by pandemic? Who by loneliness? Who will be taken before their time? Who will be tranquil and who tormented? I worry for those among the 28% of Americans, including many of you, who live alone and have already been deprived of human contact either mostly or entirely for 6 months. I worry for those who may be living with loved ones, but still suffering mightily from the disconnection to friends and family elsewhere. I worry for seniors who cannot see their children and grandchildren except on a screen. I worry for those who I know are buckling from the weight of their loneliness, and I worry for those who feel they're doing just fine. See, the longer this goes on, the more it will change us forever, in some ways that will not strengthen us. This is another of those times that will change so much about our lives, so many of our habits and ways of being. Who will we be? How will we be when all of this is over? Will our adaptation to virtual relationship, with all of its convenience and all of its facilness, leave us unready to embrace the harder, more time-consumptive, heart-consumptive work of real relationship? After all, we were already addicted to our screens before this scourge, already redefining friendship as lightly as Facebook does, already prioritizing quantity of contact over quality and suffering the consequences. We will be different forever when this chapter in human history ends. What will that look and feel like? The new year 5781 arrives with so many questions we cannot answer. This too is always a part of being human, but we can feel our answerlessness more acutely now, with the world spinning in utter turmoil. This is my 18th High Holy Days as your rabbi. And over the course of those many years, as I've been privileged to be invited into the defining moments of your lives, be they joyful or painful, I have learned a great truth from you. I have learned that we humans usually don't come unglued, even when confronted with the most awful of situations. When faced with horrible news, even our own mortality, we somehow find a way. I've watched again and again with astonishment as you've risen to the greatest challenges of your lives, and I've been inspired by your courage, your resilience, your readiness to adjust, to live with realities that you would have imagined to be far beyond your capacity before they imposed themselves on you. More than you might think, the awful doesn't unglue us. Uncertainty, however, that can really take us apart, even more than awfulness. Just the waiting, consumed by fear about what we can feel might be coming, without knowing for sure what it will be or how deep it will cut, that is terrifying, sometimes too much to bear. Tonight, we are awash in the waiting as the new year 5781 dawns, waiting to see what our collective future holds during and after this pandemic. The only way to combat the agony of that uncertainty is to begin now, shaping the future we yearn to see. The great 19th century Jewish philosopher Franz Rosenzweig taught that life is a succession of leaps into pathlessness. Sometimes we enjoy the illusion of certainty about our future until life disabuses us of the illusion. But has there ever been a moment less certain than this one, which bears no resemblance to anything we've ever seen or experienced before? Instead of churning with fear over what we cannot know, let us leap into the pathlessness and build the future we want to know, the one that has brought you to this congregation that cannot congregate. It is a future where you will not be alone and where you will commit to ensuring that others are not alone. My friend, Orthodox Rabbi Yosef Kanevsky, said it perfectly when he wrote, "Every hand that we don't shake must be a phone call that we place. Every embrace that we avoid must become a verbal expression of warmth and concern. Every inch and every foot that we physically place between ourselves and another must become a thought as to how we might be of help to that other should the need arise." In a world that seems to be nothing but isolation, we must be source points of connection. We must be asking ourselves, who in my family or among my friends or within this congregation needs me to prioritize quality over quantity, to be determined in going deeper than the superficial, in transcending acquaintanceship in favor of the real thing? We have to. Not only to survive this pandemic and help others to survive it, but because with every passing day, our habits are changing. We are changing. We are learning to leave precious pieces of our humanity behind, possibly for good. What felt impossible to us in March already feels frighteningly familiar, routine even, in September. We've grown used to being separated. We've even started talking about the ways it's better. What will be left of the obligation we only feel in another's eye once we are done living through this event for the history books? What will those history books say about who we became? Sound too grandiose for such small, unhistoric acts of companionship? The greatest Jewish thinker of the 20th century, Abraham Joshua Heschel, he didn't think so. Shortly before his death, he was interviewed on NBC and asked what message he wanted to convey to young people. His answer works plenty well for all people. Said Heschel, "Let them remember that there is a meaning beyond absurdity. Let them be sure that every deed counts, that every word has power, and that we all can do our share to redeem the world in spite of all absurdities and all frustrations and all disappointments. And above all, let them remember to build a life as if it were a work of art. The absurdities, frustrations, and disappointments of this, our moment for history, are too many to number. But there is meaning beyond them all, because every deed counts, and every word has power, and our lives are to be built like a work of art. Let us create together. Amen.
Shana Tova. For those that don't yet know me, my name is Iris Weinman, and I am honored to serve as president of Liobek Temple. When I was up on the Bima during last year's High Holy Day services, listening to then President Lloyd Sagan address all of you, and thinking forward to the year ahead, it never occurred to me that my first High Holy Day address to you, our congregation, would be from my own living room, or that I would not get to give you instructions about how to exit the parking lot after services. The one thing every president looks forward to so much as part of the High Holy Day rituals. My husband Ted and I joined Liobek 14 years ago when our son Yonah was just a year old. Our younger son Asher was born a year later. I still vividly remember that summer night in 2006 when we came to a service in the outdoor chapel to check out Liobek Temple. We arrived that night as total strangers and left that same night feeling like we had been a part of this community for years. While everyone's story of how they ended up at Liobek differs, I have learned that our stories are, in many ways, similar. Whatever brought us here initially, it was the community that drew us in and kept us here. At LBT, we feel seen, we feel valued, and we are treated like we are important members of the community. So when COVID-19 hit, one of the biggest challenges we faced was, how do we maintain that sense of community when we cannot be together? How do we continue to engage with each other and support each other when we are locked in our homes and physically distant? The answer, it turns out, is that our bond, while certainly strengthened by our beautiful campus and our ability to be together in person, far transcends the brick and mortar. Our clergy team, led so ably by Rabbi Ken Chasen, and our staff, led by our one-of-a-kind executive director, Abigail Goldberg-Spiegel, used creativity, collaboration, technology, and a lack of sleep to completely shift our programming online. Thus, LBT Home to Home was created. Worship services and other adult gatherings were live streamed. A host of new programs and ways of connecting online were added. Religious school classes transitioned to an online platform to continue to engage our youngest learners. And a wealth of resources were offered to help us celebrate a joyful and meaningful Passover, confirm our 10th graders, experience the joys of bar and bat mitzvahs, and so much more. Our trustees and key lay leaders reached out to every one of our 600 member families at least 3 times in the past 6 months to check in, make sure people weren't feeling too isolated, to see what support we could provide. Volunteers assisted our higher risk members with grocery shopping, prescription deliveries, companionship, and other basic needs. Our social justice and community organizing volunteers went into overdrive. We partnered to organize a food bank through which our members have now provided groceries to an estimated 8,000 households. Inspired by our community of elders, we also partnered with a homeless shelter to provide clothes and basic necessities to the homeless in our community. And now, this, completely reinventing in a meaningful and deep manner the way in which we experience the High Holy Days together as a community. Some people call what we have been living the past 6 months a shutdown. What I saw at Leobeck Temple was the opposite. It was a ramp up. As anxious as I was about assuming the presidency of an organization during this particular moment in history, what I felt most was pride for this community, what we have accomplished and continue to accomplish, and our ability to reinvent ourselves to meet the moment we are in. This type of ramp up does not come easily and requires a tremendous amount of resources. This includes the core of our organization, which is our personnel. Our 4-member clergy team, each with their own area of specialty, but together one collaborative unit. Our executive director, who has become an expert on so many different subjects, it makes my head spin. Our staff, our teachers, those that continue to maintain our campus and to ensure our security. We have invested in the latest technology to enable our LBT home-to-home to work as flawlessly as possible and to bring our High Holy Day services to life. Protective equipment, upgrading all of the air filters in our building. Of course, it's also fire season, so ensuring that our fire safety equipment is constantly up to date. The list goes on and on. Thanks to the careful financial stewardship of LBT over the past 17 years by our professional and lay leaders, when the challenges of COVID-19 hit, we were prepared financially. Living below our means for all those years and wisely investing our resources meant that when the rainstorm hit us, we had a rainy day fund to draw upon. While we did have to make some difficult decisions, we were not required to make substantial cuts or to make an emergency appeal for funds, as so many other organizations were forced to do. But what we have learned is the importance of having that rainy day fund to ensure that we are always prepared for any obstacles that might come our way. During my 14 years as a member of this congregation, I have had the opportunity to participate, as many of you have, in 2 capital campaigns. One, Lech Lecha, brought us a complete reconstruction of our sanctuary and main building, and another, Kadima, brought us our brand new religious school facility and the Mark and Peachy Levy Beit Midrash. As a community, we invested in something tangible that we could see and touch. In just a few weeks, after the High Holy Days come to an end, we will be embarking on a 3rd campaign. This time, not to build any brick and mortar, but to build the future of Leobeck Temple. Not something we can see or touch, but something we envision. Ensuring the ongoing strength of this community to continue to serve our members and to withstand any unforeseen challenges that may come our way. Ensuring that no member is turned away from LBT because financial challenges prevent them from paying full dues. Ensuring that all students who want to participate in our religious education are welcomed, regardless of their family's ability to pay. Ensuring that we can continue to attract and retain the top clergy in the nation. Ensuring that we have the technology we need to move us forward into the next stage of how Judaism will be experienced in a post-COVID world. to get us through this current rainstorm and prepare us for the next one, always making sure that we act from a place of strength and not of desperation or weakness. I and the other leaders of our temple look forward to providing you with more information in the next few weeks about how you can invest in the future of Liobek Temple. In the meantime, as we spend these next 10 days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur engaging in self-reflection, I ask that you include in your reflections what Liobek Temple has meant for you and your family, and how you envision what our future together holds. Thank you, and Shana Tova.
Aleinu can be found on page 82. If you're able, please rise.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא, הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא, ביום ההוא, יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
Given that this is just the first evening of our high holy days, I want to make sure you're fully informed about all of the meaningful opportunities that await us all in the days ahead, especially because the unusual circumstances of these holidays have given rise to some unusual opportunities, as well as changes to our usual schedule. First of all, I want you to know that SOVA's annual High Holy Days food drive is alive and well at all the local congregations, even while we cannot pray at our synagogues. So please stop by the temple anytime between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur with bags filled with non-perishable food items for our city's hungry. The temple parking lot is open Monday through Fridays from 9 o'clock a.m. to 5 o'clock p.m. For many years, our temple has proudly outdistanced every other local congregation in this High Holy Days food drive. And of course, the SOVA food drive is now in addition to our weekly Wednesday food drive. So many in our city are in need, and we can make a difference. So please, bring your food items before Yom Kippur, and then keep on bringing them every Wednesday throughout the new year. Tomorrow morning, please note that our Rosh Hashanah morning service will begin streaming at 9 o'clock a.m. That's just a bit earlier than usual, since we won't have to face the hassles of driving to the temple. And this year, our family service will be led for the first time by our entire clergy team. It will be on Zoom beginning at 11:30 a.m. Gather grandparents, parents, and children wherever you all may be, and join us. And then our children's service, geared to those 8 and younger, will be 2 o'clock p.m., also on Zoom. For each service that you register to attend, you will receive a personalized link 48 hours prior to the service. There are so many wonderful opportunities for us to be together. I hope you will join us again and again. Many of you are familiar with how we usually conclude Rosh Hashanah, with a tremendous gathering at the beach for Tashlich, a chance to cast our sins metaphorically into the ocean as we start the new year. Unfortunately, it wouldn't be safe for us to go to the beach together, but that doesn't mean that we don't hope you'll observe Tashlich safely on your own or with your family. Our clergy team has prepared an audio resource with music, teachings, and inspiration for you to access on your phone while you are visiting the ocean. We hope you'll make this beautiful custom a part of your Rosh Hashanah. Next Friday, September 24th, is Shabbat Shuvah, our special Sabbath of repentance. Services will be online at 6:15 p.m., and our member, Richard Marks, will give the Devar Torah. If you have not had the opportunity to attend in the past, it is a not-to-be-missed Shabbat. Please be with us. Our Yom Kippur evening service next week will be on Sunday, September 27th. We will begin with candlelighting by Zoom at 7 o'clock p.m. so we can treasure seeing each other's faces, followed by the streaming of our Erev Yom Kippur Kol Nidre service at 7:30 p.m. Yom Kippur morning services on Monday, September 28th will begin again at 9 o'clock a.m. with our family service at 11:30 a.m. and our children's service at 2 o'clock p.m. And Yom Kippur Day will be filled with special opportunities to learn, meditate, and immerse in the holiday. Please consult your High Holy Day messages from us regarding all of the options available. On behalf of our Board of Trustees, our clergy, staff, and the entire LBT community, I want to wish you all a good and sweet new year, filled with many blessings of health, love, and joy. Shana Tova.
On page 87. Death will come. Its hand will not be stayed even an instant, nor can we enter into judgment with it. Our question, why, will go unanswered. But this does not mean that we are helpless in the face of death. We can and we do rob death of ultimate victory by living life as long as it is ours to live. To ask of death that it never come is futile. But it is not futility to pray that when death comes for us, it may take us from a world, one corner of which is a little better because we were there. When we are dead and people weep for us and grieve, let it be because we touched their lives with beauty and simplicity. Let it not be said that life was good to us, but rather that we were good to life. As we prepare to recite the Kaddish prayer on this Rosh Hashanah and Shabbat evening, we remember especially Marilyn Halpin, grandmother of Becca Halpin, Ronald Russell, father of Andrew Russell, father-in-law of Jack Isaacs, grandfather of Aaron and Sarah Russell Isaacs, whom death has taken from us in recent days. And we link their names with David Askenaz, Anna Z. Baer, Penelope Bartis, Selma Block, Lillian Blum, Michael Brisky, Alex Carmel, Joseph Emma, Belle Felder, Anne Curry Friedman, Cora W. Gary, Mitty Giesberg, Hugo L. Grumbach, Boris Gutman, Margie Kirschenbaum, Edith Cruis, Eleanor Lappin, Roz Livingston, Robert Lowenson, Jean Mandel, Celia Mitchell, Edward M. Ornitz, Ben Satnick, Sue Ellen Lorge Schwartz, Harvey Schleiferman, Doris Sutnick, Samuel Swiller, Theodore Ted Williams. With all of them in mind and in heart, we say Zecher Tzadik Livracha. The memory of the righteous is an everlasting blessing. It's together we give thanks for the blessing of life with the words of Mourner's Kaddish found on page 90. If you're able, please rise at this time. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, ve'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon v'yomechon, v'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, b'agala v'zman kariv v'imru, Amen. Yehei shemei Rabbah mevarach le'alam u'lalmei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yitalal, shemei dekudsha, Barichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, ta'amiran be'alma v'imru, Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru, Amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'al kol yoshvei tevel, v'imru, Amen.
Shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru, Amen.
Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, our God, who binds us to those who preceded us and stretches our story out to those who will follow. Strengthen us as we reach to rise to this, our moment for the history books. What story will be told of us? What will we become in this new year, 5781? Let it be told of us that we leapt into the pathlessness of this pandemic and built a future of blessing, where neither you nor I will be alone, where there will be meaning beyond this absurdity, where every deed will count, where every word will have its power, and where together, even while separated, we will heed the call to build our lives like a work of art. Shana Tova.